Welcome to the Boone Podcast. I'm your host, Bret Boone. And today on the program, I'm joined by an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and motivational speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Meltzer to the program. David, thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I like to go backward into my sports days. So to see a hero of mine in the media and platform space really excites me, and I just want to commend you. You're maybe even better off the field than you are on, my friend. So congratulations.
Well, thanks. It's been an interesting journey for me. Going to this side of the microphone. I've been interviewed my whole life. Now I'm the interviewer, so it's a little bit of a role change for me. I've been looking through a lot of your stuff, and you got so many interesting thoughts and life ideas, and we all go on this journey. We all go through different parts of our lives. We live and we learn. We think we know it all. We don't. We think we know it all. We don't. I'll get into all that, and I'll let more importantly, you get into it. But I've had coaches my whole life. I've had a million of them, starting as a little kid through my major league career, and I probably still need one now. But I want to talk to you about being an executive coach. I think a life coach. What's that all about?
For me, when I had Leigh Steinberg Sports and Entertainment, I was around a lot of celebrities, athletes, and entertainers who had coaches their entire life. And it was really interesting to me how when they transitioned from playing into the business world, all of a sudden there was this misconception that you don't need a coach. You don't need a coach all of a sudden because it's not a sport. And it was, really surprising that so many extraordinary athletes from the biggest ones in the world who had coaches since they were 5 years old, all of a sudden thought, hey, I probably can do this on my own. And so as I encouraged athletes that I worked with, either at Leigh Steinberg or later on, Warren Moon and I had a global sports marketing company, I started to realize that through the experiences that I had, the ability to make money, to help people, to have fun, with the backdrop of sports and understanding content and media and sports, that I actually could fulfill that ability to transition people from what they're really good at and identify the skills that they learn playing, the knowledge that they gain, not just of what, but of who, because a lot of athletes, I think, discount the relationship capital that they built while they're playing and the brand within internal and external relationship capital. And then the biggest component is the common thread of all great athletes is desire. They have a desire that they must be what they can be. And there's nothing more valuable in the business world as an executive coach than having one of your players, quote unquote, having that desire. Because the biggest frustration in helping people is when you want it more than they want it for themselves. And I'm sure you were on the dugout with a few of those players that probably even had more skill than you had, but they didn't have the desire that you had. And I'm sure as a teammate, it was so frustrating. You can imagine what it was for your coaches when they saw that as well. So an executive coach to me has three components. One, mentorship. They sit in a situation that you want to be in. Fastest way to get there is asking for directions. Two, coaching, which is bringing the best out of the mentee or the person. And then three, teaching. You have to actually be able to explain it, meet people where they're at so that they understand what the F you're saying. You've watched some of my content, and my biggest challenge is teaching because I just make these invisible assumptions that everybody knows what I'm talking about. Sometimes I watch my own video and I'm like, I don't think anybody understands these existential thoughts in the way that I portrayed them. I better dummy it down to meet people where they're at.
It's so interesting because we're all at that point. I know I was. Now looking back, I'm 15 years removed from my career. And if you would have, I think the biggest challenge for us as athletes is when we're in our sweet zone, when we're in our heyday, per se, making a ton of money. Everybody wants a piece of you. You are it at the time. Ego is a huge part of that. But I often think now, being removed, looking at that, myself at 35, myself at 25, I think it would be really tough for someone to come into my life and say, Bret, when you're done playing, I'd really like to help you acclimate into everyday life. What's it like? And I'm telling you, and I found out, I've had some great lessons. I've had some tough lessons taught to me since I've retired, because all of a sudden I've done this my whole life. That's all I've been is baseball. And now I'm looking around. I'm at home in the off season, and I'm watching how how life goes. I'm like, no, this is not. Well, Bret, you were playing baseball for 20 years, and this is what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it's a shock to the system if you're not prepared. I think so many, especially athletes or people in the entertainment field, could benefit from that soft landing from their profession to everyday life. I know I definitely could have benefited from that. And like I said, I've learned some lessons, some tough, and some that made me a better person going through life. But it's really interesting. And I just think so many people could use this. Um, how did people originally, how did you get people originally to buy into what you had to offer?
It's interesting. I did it for free on accident because of the roles that I played at Leigh Steinberg and in Sports One marketing. But when I started speaking around the world, people would come up to me and ask me to be their business advisor, their business coach, their executive coach, and their life coach. And as more people asked me to do that, I started to look into it. And I actually got a mentor. I got a world business consultant, one of the best executive coaches in the world, Marshall Goldsmith, who uh, was executive coach for the CEOs of Ford. An incredible, he had 10 of the top 50 CEOs in the world that he was coaching. And so I went to him and I said, hey, people are asking me to do this. I don't really get it. I've always given advice. Like, I don't know how to structure it. I don't know how to charge for it. And lo and behold, I paid for him to mentor me. And here I am many years later, one of the top 100 Marshall Goldsmith coaches, and doing the same thing. And, blessed to coach some of the biggest executives in the world. And, my favorite are the young athletes that are far more wise than you and I, the young Austin Eckler's and Michael Chandler's and other young athletes that while they're playing, they already see that they need directions on how to get to where they want to be after they're done playing. But the same way that I learned to do other things, I went and found someone that sat in the situation I wanted to be in, asked them for help. And I've built, as you know, one of the biggest executive coaching and life coaching businesses now almost in the world. There's very few people who have as many elite athletes and executives that I have, and am able to help them as well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. All right, let's go back to the beginning. You grew up, I think you had six siblings, or were you a part of that six? Single
Yeah,
mom,
I'm part of the six, five boys, one girl.
went to law school, got your law degree. You made a ton of money. You lost a ton of money, and now you rebuilt it. You rebuilt it. Take me from the beginning through your childhood.
Yeah, just real quickly, I called it the three worlds I've lived in. I was born like a lot of athletes in a world of not enough. And in my mind, the only way out was to play sports. Uh, Unfortunately, my base was too low ever to be a professional athlete, but I worked really hard to play college football. And I reached close to my potential. Until, like I said, I was a below average college football player, but I reached close to my potential. My mom had a different vision for me. It was doctor, lawyer, or failure. And my siblings all adhered to going to the Ivy Leagues, graduating summa cum laude, and utilizing education as the way to get out of the world not enough. My mom used to work two jobs, pack my dinner in a paper bag just so we could eat. So I learned my work ethic by watching my mom. I also learned how to and what was important in life, but I wasn't aware that I was learning it until I lost everything. 9 months out of law school, I was a millionaire. 3.5 years later, we exited for $3.4 billion. I ran Samsung's phone division by 99, married my dream girl from the fourth grade. And you would have thought I had everything. It was like being a professional athlete, worth over $100 million. I, had everything I wanted, my family, three daughters. I started working for Leigh Steinberg as the CEO of the most notable sports agency at the time. They made the movie Jerry Maguire about the guy. It was an incredible life. But as you have experienced your friends, that are professional athletes, you're in a glamorized stuck. Everybody wants to be you, everybody wants a piece of you, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're happy. And when I wasn't happy, turned to the wrong people with the wrong ideas, bought things I didn't need to impress people I didn't like. I ended up just like a lot of athletes, losing everything, over $100 million. Luckily for me, I had an extraordinary wife, an extraordinary mom, who helped me understand that I was being protected and promoted by my losses, by my mistakes. I was protected and promoted by the struggle that I had to overcome. And I used that day to promote and protect me and others by understanding the relationship of the ego, like you said, and understanding how fear and the reaction to fear can actually assist us in getting to where we want to be or better. It doesn't necessarily mean punishment.
Yeah, when you bring the ego in, and I've gone about it in a different way in my life. And I don't talk about this very often, but I've been sober 6 years now. So I was a guy that liked to party. Got to a point in my life where it didn't work for me anymore, and it was starting to affect my family and friends. And through the groups that I still attend to this day, it's the ego that gets you. And I know I've read and I've watched a lot of your videos, how you always talk about giving back. I can sit here and say from my side of the street where I look and how I live my life now, it's essential. It's because when you're giving to others, it isn't about you, because our whole lives, when we get caught up too much in the money and the cars and the fame and don't you know who I am? And everybody knows who you are. It isn't about anybody else. You're not helping anybody else. When you're helping somebody else, it gets it off you and you're being of service. I hear you talk about that a lot in your videos. Touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's a huge energy crisis, especially with our children. And I speak from humility because I too have traveled the path of ego, of a need to be inferior, superior, separate. And what I have articulated it as is there's a difference between I am and wanting people to think I am. And there's a big shortage in between there between I am happy, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am worthy, compared to I want people to think I'm happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy.
Yeah,
And when and you see it
I know
on
what you're talking
social,
about.
right? And social media made it worse than when we were kids. It was already bad enough being a professional athlete or bad enough being a successful business person in the world. You could afford to do whatever you wanted to do when you wanted to do it, and everybody was telling you what you wanted to hear. In fact, when I lost everything, I realized it's really funny. The four people I hate the most in my life are the four most important people in my life. And the reason I hated them is they were the only one reminding me who I really was. My mom, my dad, my best friend, and my wife all wanted to tell me the truth. And I wasn't ready to hear the truth of who I was. I was stuck in the world of I want people to think I am, not I am. And so as we work through the humility involved in being better, we have to realize one thing, that giving and receiving are one, and that truly to where we want to be, there's only two ways. One, humility of asking someone to help us get there, but two, helping other people get to where they want to be. And I believe in a combination of both. I live my life of service and of value, and I know I can't give what I don't have or receive. So I fill my life with love and gratitude and forgiveness and be accountable. And I do. I make more money than I ever have. The reason and a purpose behind it to give it to other people, starting with the people most relative to me and my local community, my country, my state, the world. But it's an interesting thing. People don't receive, even with good intention. My mom's a second grade teacher. Her biggest flaw, she gave everything away without ever asking for more, ever asking for help herself. And sooner or later, you're going to run out of stuff to give if you don't ask for help as well. So here's the icon of my life. I'm always reaching above me to ask those people to pull up a seat for me. And I always have one hand below me, pulling up a seat and pulling up others to come sit with me as well.
Isn't it amazing? You talk about uh, perception and what I want people to think I am. Whereas the real true people in your life know who you are. I attribute a little bit, if you're analyzing a young player, a young athlete, young baseball player in my case, uh, what he says in front of his group of peers with his chest pumped out, and yeah, I'm this, I'm that, a number one draft pick, because everybody's telling you how great you are. I want that guy though behind closed doors, when he gets out of the shower and it's just him in that mirror. Does he believe? Is he that guy that he personifies out there in public? And more times than not, no. But from an athletic standpoint, when I get the kid that truly believes and truly walks the walk, that's the guy I want. And the rest of us, usually, we got to learn lessons. We got to go through life and get beat up and get humbled before we come to that conclusion. I know as a kid, David, and I heard this on a video. You said when you were a kid, you wanted to be a football player. You played at the college level. That didn't come to fruition as far as you making a living at it. But how did life around you change? Like you said, you graduated within a year, you were a millionaire, and then a big fortune came later. How did that change you and the life around you?
Well, the first thing it did is it confirmed a misnomer in my life that money would buy me the final piece of happiness and love that I wanted. I didn't realize or appreciate that I grew up with so much happiness and so much love because I didn't have money. So I was always seeking something I didn't have. And I thought, because I would catch my mom crying because a dishwasher broke or she couldn't afford college or whatever else it was that she wanted for us. I thought, if I could just be rich, I could finally be fulfilled completely by having money because that's going to fulfill me and buy me this happiness and love. And that's what changed because it gave me a confirmation at first that money does buy love and everything around me became easy. I bought my mom a house. I thought now I was the favorite of six kids. I could buy my friends whatever they want. I could go out and party and do all the things, buy planes and boats and all this stuff. And eventually, I realized it wasn't the money that created happy love in my life. What I realized was money was important, not because it bought things, it just allowed me to shop. I was shopping for the wrong things for the wrong reasons. And today, I believe in making a lot of money to help a lot of people and still have fun. But my main shift in the paradigm is money's important in the pragmatic world. It will amplify your happiness and fulfillment only if you buy the right things with it. And I started buying community centers in Africa. I'm the chief chancellor of Junior Achievement University, investing in young entrepreneurs, especially women of color and at-risk children. Investing in people that grew up where I grew up, and to give them an opportunity, a leg up, and a hand up, not a hand out, to empower them, to empower others. And I'm getting old enough, like you, Brett. What's really nice is you start seeing some of the trees that have grown seeds that you planted.
Yeah, and yeah, you see that with you get away from all the hoopla and the cameras, and you're watching your kids, and oh wow, how have I done as a father? That to me is probably uh one of my biggest things is I want to be the best dad I can be to these kids, and I've been able to do that in recent times, and that's the most fulfilling. Rise up is one thing. Time where you lost the big fortune. How did life around you change then? People, places, things. You find out who your friends were? Because
Oh
I
my
know it's
goodness.
pretty damn humbling. You know, I had some humbling times during my career. I come off hitting 320 one year. 2 years later, I'm sitting under the rafters at Riverfront Stadium, looking at the ceiling with tears in my eyes, going, "Why can't I hit anymore?" And I got to pull myself up and change my stance, and that's an off season, and I've got a swing change, and 3 years later I had to do it again. But those are life lessons that taught me. Tell me about the demise when it all went away.
Yeah, well, my basement had and I had lost over $100 million, and the basement of my life was walking over to my mom's house because the only reason I wanted to be rich was to take care of my mom originally, to buy her that house. And here I was. I get choked up thinking about it, telling her I'd lost everything. But even worse, I had taken my name off of my mom's title, so I lost my mom's house as well. And, I went from having 33 homes to having a rented house with rented furniture and one car. I had so many cars, Brett, when I went BK, I didn't know which cars I had, right? Like I had to get my own BK filing to see the list of assets. I'm like, oh shoot, I let that guy borrow that car and I had to go I had to go repo my own car.
I need to borrow that car back.
Yeah, exactly. But what I learned was so interesting because, like I said, I sat on the edge of my bed thinking, I hate my wife, I hate my best friend, I hate my dad, and I hate my mom. And I had hated my dad long because he had left when I was 5. And at 30, he had given me a jacket and told me, son, I'm worried about you. You think money buys love and happiness. Hang the jacket in the closet. It has no pockets in it. And it will remind you every day you can't take any of this, that you're going to die with nothing in your pocket. So be kind to your future self and start doing good deeds. And I told my dad at the time at 30, I said, Dad, I hate you. You are a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, an overseller, a back end seller. I'm nothing like you. Why would you do this? This is no present. F you. And I hung up on him at 30. Well, here I was on the edge of my bed thinking, I hate my mom, my dad, my best friend, and my wife. And I look over in my closet and what do I see? I see that jacket. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't hate any of them. I hated myself. I hated myself. I was a liar. I was a cheater, a manipulator, overseller, back end seller. And I was going to take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, like my wife asked me to. She threatened to leave me before I lost everything, told me this was going to happen, told me she wasn't going to wait around. She told me to take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, or she would leave, or I would die, she said, because like you, surrounding myself with the wrong ideas and the wrong people will lead you down a path. And nobody was there but me. That's what I realized. The people that I love the most, I hated, and I better reestablish the people that I love as relationships because you know what? Everybody else left. All the people that owed me money, all the people that I tried to help,
Oh,
nobody
they're
was
gone.
there for me. They were gone. In fact, the worst was in 2008. My favorite was I had several friends, close friends, who begged me to participate in some of my deals and I didn't want them in the deals. And they're like, well, let me just put 10, 20 grand in. And I was like, okay, fine. Well, then they went bankrupt, not because of the 10 or 20 grand, right? They lost their multi-million dollar houses. They made bad decisions, but I was such an easy scapegoat because as a more public leader in the community, a more public young entrepreneur and business person leading Leigh Steinberg at the time, it was so easy for these guys to say, "Oh yeah, I went bankrupt because of Dave Meltzer," and that one really that was worse than not showing up. Blaming me for their stupidity and mistakes was the cap of shame, blame, and justification for me.
Yeah, because we've had Leigh on the program, and Leigh had his own set of issues that he went through some humbling times. I heard that you had to one of the toughest things you had to do is go to Leigh and say, Leigh, I'm bankrupt.
Oh yeah, it was really difficult. I think, but for Warren Moon, who is a mutual best friend of Leigh and I think both of us would have had a difficult time recovering. I was blessed that genetically I didn't have that much of addiction to drugs and alcohol, but it was having a terrible impact on my life, which has led me to where Leigh is to understand sobriety and having a higher level of thinking and awareness. But one was there for both of us, and he helped as a conduit and a liaison, which I'll always be grateful for him to help me and Leigh both live in humility and admit, that we needed help, and be able to get that help. Both of us got us to where we are today, and it's such a pleasure to see him thriving and just a blessing that you can heal and be forgiven.
A lot of us, I don't know how you think of this right now from the rise, fall, rise again. Um, What do you appreciate most about this second time around for you? And I don't even know if it's the right words to say second chance. Maybe it is. Maybe you
Yeah.
look at it that way. But second time around for you, what do you appreciate most?
My non-negotiables. I never stuck to my non-negotiables. So for me, number one, my health. Especially as young and we take our health for granted. You can eat whatever you want, especially if you're athletic and you're working out. It seems like I'll never have to worry about getting sick or injured and so I think, I really appreciate my health as a non-negotiable, including sleep and meditation. I if I could be and do it over again, I still do. My goal now, Brett, is I want to be in the Hall of Fame of sleep. I want to be the best sleeper. I want to be the best sleeper in the world, meaning I want to recover better than anyone and I want to access the information void of my conscious when I sleep. I have a sleep coach that helps me with it, but I truly, if I could be the best sleeper in the world, everything else would be easy. I truly believe that. The second one beyond my health is my family. And where it's interesting is that to take care of your family, you have to take care of yourself. And I would lie to myself all the time that I put my family first, but I really wasn't. Those people that put their family first take care of themselves. They take care of their health. They take care of their finance. They take care of their faith. And then they can give all of that to their family and take care of them. And I tell you, I have non negotiables in the calendar 7 hours for sleep and 3 hours for fitness, family, faith, and studying time. So I utilize my time each day productively, accessibly, and graciously. But that to me is what I'm most appreciative is that I'm living my life with non-negotiables so that someone asks me, hey, you want to do this at 3 o'clock? I tell them I can't because I have to do this with my son or, 4 kids of my own, or I'm doing this with my wife. And I use time to help make sure and regulate that I'm prioritizing the non-negotiables in my life. And that faith component is now a big part of it as well, which wasn't there before.
Another clip. I know I keep referring to the clips, but they're interesting.
There's so
Uh,
many.
there's one going around, and I found it made me smile. Not at the outcome for these two individuals, but it rings so true in my profession in the sports world. There's a clip you about when you were a kid. You were a ball boy for the Lakers. I'm going to
Clippers,
set it
Clippers,
up for you. I'm going to
the
set it up
Clippers.
for you, and I'm going to
Yeah,
let you tell the story. But the two athletes involved are Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Dr. J. I grew up in Jersey, so I was a big Philly guy. So it was Sixers, Flyers, Eagles, Phillies. That was the four. And when you're in that part of the country, you better be rooting for all four. So I was a big Dr. J guy. But tell that story about the Kareem side of it and the Julius Irving side of it.
yeah. So I was blessed to be a ball boy at 12 years old for the San Diego Clippers. And my very first game was my dream. And my mom had helped me get that job through the head of sports. The Clippers practiced at the Jewish Community Center, and the head was close friends with my mom. And this was a big favor. And my very first game, it's the Lakers versus the Clippers. And they put me into the visiting locker room, and there's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and I screwed up something because it was my first day. I'm standing about 4 feet 6 and 78 pounds next to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's a really intense guy, and in favor of him, he was getting ready for the game, and I screwed up, but he came down on me, called me boy, screamed at me, told me to get the f out of the locker room. So I went home that day crying to my mom, saying I'm done, I'm quitting, and as always, my mom said, we don't quit. You'll finish out the season. And if you decide not to go back, that's your decision. But he really went overboard, in my opinion, for a 12-year-old. And so I didn't want to go back. I went back. The next game was our hero, Dr. J, in the visiting locker room. And I was gun shy. I thought all the big superstars were a-holes, were mean. And I'm literally like a dog that's been beaten. You can see the body language. And Dr. J walks over to me, and I'm almost flinching as if he's going to scream at me. And he puts that gigantic hand on my back. And he says, son, how come I have so many socks over there? I said, I don't know. They tell me to give you 6 pairs. I put them out on your chair. He's, I'll go get them for me. I went and got him, and he said, "Son, do you have any siblings?" I said, "Yeah, I have 5." He said, "What's their names?" And he signed each of the pairs of socks to my siblings. And then he told me to grab this basketball, and he said, "Here." And he signed a basketball for it, which I still have today, which probably my grandson will retire off of. But more importantly, uh, who would have known that I would run the most notable sports agency someday and have all of these interviews from people like you? And one of the common questions are, who's the nicest or coolest athlete you have ever met? Who's the biggest jerk? And little did Dr. J know that he was being kind to his future self, and that nobody has promoted what a cool, amazing person Dr. J is. And it's funny because that video, just to amplify this idea of karma or divine messaging, that's the most popular video I've ever done. It has like 5 million views every time it posts. And I'm just amplifying how important it is to be good, because I promise you, at 12 years old, Dr. J did not give me all of that stuff and be so kind to me, thinking that someday he would receive so much more back. And I'm sure Kareem had no idea that his brand would be diminished and damaged, and opportunities, because whenever someone asks me for a legacy basketball player, and I feed these guys a lot of 6-figure deals, doing one at the NBA All-Star game, Dr. J's first on my list to get the gig, and Kareem's not on the list.
Kareem's last on the list. Uh, um, it's so true because I was taught that at a young age. My dad played a long time, and he always said, "Treat people how you want to be treated." And I went out of my way during my career, and it was we'd go on the road, and there's a main clubhouse guy, and there's a bunch of clubbies. I always made sure I treated everybody. I treated our traveling secretary the way I wanted to be treated, and I'll tell you, I didn't do it expecting anything in return. Yeah, I might get the better room on the road if I take care of the traveling secretary, but to this day, I can call a lot of people and ask for information, whatever it may be, and they're there for me. And I think, and I try to teach my kids that treat people the way you want to be treated, not with expecting anything in return. I don't think that's the way gratitude works. It's treating people the way you want to be treated, expecting nothing in return. Sometimes it does return to you, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's an interesting concept. Give the people listen to the Boom podcast right now. It's the holiday seasons. It's emotional for a lot of people. How do they keep life in perspective, especially this time of year? Because a lot of people don't like this time of year. It brings up emotions, sad. They just want to get, you hear a lot of people, I just want to get through the holidays. It's worse. I love the holidays, but little piece of advice for those out there that may be suffering or just wanting to get through, how to put it in perspective.
Well, I think there's two things, and it's one, gratitude. Wake up during the holidays and look for what we do want from our lives, what we want from our own immediate family, our relatives, friends, our associates. If we take the time to look and find the light, the love, and the lessons in them, knowing that we are all human and we get what we look for. The biggest change in my marriage was I used to look for what I didn't want in my wife. And all I did was made this shift of, I'm so blessed. My, you know, B word became the queen bee in my life. And I just started seeing what I was looking for. And I think people do that during the holidays. They're looking for what's missing, what they don't have, what other people want for them, and they get more of what don't have, what's missing, and what other people want for them. And through gratitude, through a perspective of finding light, love, and lessons in everything you want, it'll change the holidays for you. And then I think, even as a bigger message, especially this year for me, uh, is the idea of forgiveness. It's amazing what's going around in the world, and you think about the atrocities of people dying, whether it's babies dying, grandparents dying, or everybody in between. Every time someone is killed or murdered or harmed, it creates a new generation of hate. And there's going to be only one solution to this problem, and it's not some great diplomat or politician. It's going to be a simple forgiveness. We're going to have to learn to forgive one another and move forward with kindness and generosity and gratitude in our heart. And so during the holidays, if you feel separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, depressed, whatever it may be, take a deep breath. Look for what you want in those peoples and in that circumstance. Also, forgive yourself and forgive others for being human and making mistakes. And I promise everything will be a little bit better and a little bit brighter. And if you're completely lost, my best piece of advice, go do something for somebody else. If you're sitting there and you don't know what to do, you're angry, just just go help someone across the street. Go volunteer at the homeless shelter. Do something to help someone else. It is impossible to be of service and of value and to be depressed. It is God's gift to us. It's biochemical and anatomical. The minute you give to someone else, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins are released in your system. You will feel good.
That's right. Getting out of self. Um, your goal is to provide happiness to 1 million people. How
Over a
do we get
billion. Don't limit me. Over a billion.
I was going to say, how do you get to 1,000,001? All right. Who's who's your David Meltzer?
Uh, God. Um, for me, like my whole paradigm is I don't care what religion, philosophy, theory, or spirituality you believe in. I have simplified it. I call it a best option faith, Brett. I believe in something bigger than me that loves me more than my mom. Something that's so big, it's omniscient, it knows everything, it's all powerful, and it protects and promotes me. But I understand that human beings aren't capable of understanding or knowing outcomes. So when things happen in my life that I didn't plan, when things happen in my life that seem to be punishing in some way, when things happen in my life that other people would determine to be a mistake, setback, and a failure, I use my faith to say, what am I doing to interfere with the all knowing? And so instead of this idea that I need to change more, 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 instead it's I am, what am I doing to interfere with it? And when I shift that paradigm in my life, that there's more than enough of everything for everyone, I'm just interfering with it. I can then identify the fear, understand how I react to those clues and the patterns that I've created, and make better choices, better behavior, which does create with faith better progress. And within the context of understanding that, I'm trying to empower 1,000 people like you that I know will empower 1,000 to empower 1,000. The way that I get to over a billion people is by empowering 1,000 people that I know have a community like you do that will empower that community with these great thoughts and ideas and relationships to empower another 1,000. 1,000 times 1,000's a million times 1,000's a billion. It's not in arrogance, but in humility that I believe that with one simple person, we can change the world if they're empowering other people as well. So I use applied mathematics and faith in order to create abundance and hopefully change the world for the better.
No, this is cool. And just getting you to come on the show today. We cover so many things. We're hustling and bustling through life, but I never get to cover this topic on the Boone podcast. I think it's great. It's a great way to live your life with just basic principles. And that's not me sitting here preaching to this is how you live life, but just
Right.
hearing some of the points you made. I think they're important. It's definitely I've attributed a few of those little changes in my life to true happiness. And I've been a pretty happy go lucky guy my entire life, but I've had some dark periods too. And applying some of these principles have really made a big difference in how I go about my life and how I father the friend I am, the husband I am. I attribute a lot to this, and it is from a humble place. It's not from a look at me place. It's a no. This stuff really works, and sometimes we get caught up in life and what's important and what's not important. And I think this is a great message for a lot of people out there listening. So I really appreciate coming on, David, taking the time today. And for those, oh, by the way, where can people uh, get a hold of David Meltzer? Where do they need to go? It's your floor,
Thank you.
platforms, and
Right.
just
I have
yeah.
two easy ways. And one, I want to offer your entire community a book. So I will sign my book. I'll pay for shipping, pay for the book. Anyone that emails me directly, david at dmeltzer.com. I answer all my own emails. So David at dmeltzer.com. I'd love to share my book with you, Connected to Goodness. It'll change your life. And then if you forget the email, just Google me. I'm blessed. I'm on every platform. You'll find that Dr. J video or some video about you buying cars or standing in front of cars you don't need. Who knows what you'll find, but go down the David Meltzer rabbit hole by Googling my name, David Meltzer. I'm on every platform, David Meltzer. And Bret, I'd love to have you back on my podcast. You fit in perfectly in the playbook with Norman and all the Reach TV and Apple TV stuff. So I would love to amplify and elevate this platform for you. So please reach out. We got a lot of great things that need great people, great leaders like you. And it's really nice to know that some of my heroes like you on the field are carrying that forward off the field as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, David, I appreciate it, man. And yes, I'd love to come on your podcast. We'll get together behind the scenes and we'll make that happen in the future. Once again, thanks for coming on. For those out there, we're starting to put this on YouTube a little bit. So if you want to watch, go ahead and check it out. For those of you listening to the Boone podcast, I appreciate you tuning in. And until next time, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We'll see you.